Have they priced in what could happen if there's a no deal, do you think? Or have they priced in if there's an extension or anything?
I think for us, Dan, what we've been doing through various managers is adding a little bit to European exposure, but by buying active managers rather than just passives across the board. And you can focus on the stronger economies in Europe there, which would be Sweden, Germany, Netherlands, France, etc., and avoiding the weaker southern states. Europe's had a good run, it has to be said, over the quarter. It's up 15%, whereas the UK is up 9%. And we're seeing our weightings in the portfolios adjusted accordingly because of that. But we'll just continue to let that ride. Now, when it comes to pricing of a potential yes or no, a hard or soft Brexit, terminology that we haven't heard for months, one of the biggest things would be the currency devaluation and how that could affect the portfolios. And we thought back in June 2016 that this could be bad. But in fact, as that day panned out, and you remember the three of us were in London that day, we were looking at it and thinking, has this really happened? You woke up to say the Prime Minister's about to resign because of the Brexit result. And think, what Brexit result? Because the polls were all showing that we were going to stay in. And then we looked at currencies, and the pound had dropped, but the multi-asset portfolios that we had, because of the exposure to Europe and US, had actually gone up in value. So are we pricing it in? I think that the currency will be very important. We're at 111 now against the euro. It was 118 in January. It hit a low of 109, so it's been bouncing around a little bit there. There's sectors, and the reason I highlighted active managers there is that we will choose those sectors in Europe that we want to be invested in. Turning it to the domestic economy, well, what would be the winners and losers? FTSE 100, again, if we see a currency devaluation, the majority of the exporters in there, should we say, or the energy companies whose product is priced in dollars, translate that across into sterling, and you've got higher profitability. The FTSE 250 stocks would be at greater risk because they've got the focus on the domestic markets. So all in all, because of the multi-asset approach that we have within the portfolios, the managers aren't particularly at the moment had an eye on Brexit because of everything else which is going on. But they are looking at individual sectors and taking more focused decisions rather than a broad brush approach.
And talking about kind of deals, no deals, trade agreements and things, Peter, do you think that there's still a fair chance we'll get the deals completed with the likes of the United States, with Australia and Canada and things?
It's a good question. I don't honestly know. I think there's no reason why we shouldn't. And I think, again, Donald Trump sort of suffers from the same issues that we talked about with coronavirus and, over there. So I'd imagine they'll be really, really keen to do a deal as well. I think we've got to, is the answer. We've just got to get on with those deals and put them in place. I do, for what it's worth, think that we will end up with a deal with the EU. There is going to be no extension. The deadline for that passed on Tuesday. I mean, I know all things can always be renegotiated, but I would think there's almost no chance of an extension. I think Boris has staked his reputation on that, and it would be almost like political career suicide to go and do that now. So I can't see an extension. I think we will get a deal with the EU. I think we had this debate all of last year. Will we get a withdrawal agreement through or not? And of course, we did. He got his majority, he got it through. I think exactly the same thing happens. Of course, he goes into this negotiation with an 80 majority, which is a different sort of circumstance to how he went into the last one. But I've got very little doubt that we will end up with some kind of deal with the EU before the end of the year. And in practice, again, these things can slip, as we saw last year. But you sort of really need to have that in place by October, probably the end of October, to give Parliament a chance to vote on it here. And the EU to get it through as well with all their member states, which really just comes down to Germany and France. If they agree, then it should be a formality. But I would think we get it through. I think there'll be lots. Just going back to the point, I think it was David made earlier about tough talk. I would expect in the next few weeks to see a lot more tough talk around EU trying to bully Britain and a bit of that kind of rhetoric as well. Trying to rally the troops, if you like, behind behind Boris and unite the country.